Have you ever wondered how a single glance could rewrite an entire kingdom's destiny? One evening, a king looked out from his palace rooftop. What he saw would change the course of Israel's history forever. It began with desire and ended in death. A loyal soldier betrayed, a prophet's warning ignored, a royal scandal covered in silence, and a woman right at the center of it all. He must never find out. You are the man. The child will die. Solomon shall reign. This is not just the story of King David's greatest failure. It's the story of Bathsheba, a woman caught in the crossfire of lust, judgment, and redemption. She entered the palace as a victim, but walked the halls as the queen mother, from shame to power, from scandal to legacy. The question is, was she simply a pawn in a king's sin? Or was she a silent strategist who helped shape the future of Israel? You're about to witness one of the most shocking stories in the Bible, as you've never heard it before. It begins with stillness. In the heart of Jerusalem, the sun begins its descent. A warm amber light spills over stone walls, terrace rooftops, and narrow winding paths. Merchants close their stalls. Priests ascend to evening prayer. The city exhales. Above it all, the king's palace rises, a fortress of carved limestone overlooking every home, every life, and on its roof a king walks alone. King David, warrior, poet, anointed ruler of Israel. But this evening, not at war, not writing psalms, just wandering. And then he sees her. Her name is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, one of David's elite warriors, the granddaughter of Ahel, the king's own counselor, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, another loyal soldier away at war. And now she bathes, not for beauty, not for seduction, but because the Torah commands it. According to Jewish law, after her monthly cycle, a woman must undergo ritual purification, a mikveh, before rejoining her husband. It is a sacred act, private, obedient. But from his vantage point, David sees not law, but lust. He should have looked away, should have turned back. Instead, he sends messengers, a summons from the king himself. What could she do? Say no to a king. Her husband is away, her family loyal to the crown. Refusing a royal command could mean exile or worse. That night, David crossed a line, not just of law, but of covenant. We do not know what was said between them. Scripture is silent. But soon, Bathsheba sends word back to the palace, 2 words that shake him to the core. I am pregnant. Was it fate? Was it temptation? Was it sin? But more haunting than David's lust is the silence that followed. She never spoke in protest. She never cried out. But that doesn't mean she consented. In a world where kings held absolute power, did she ever have a choice? Did she have a choice? She sends word to the king, just 3 words, I am pregnant. 3 words, but they echo like thunder in David's soul. This wasn't supposed to happen. A single night, a secret sin forgotten. But now a seed is growing, and with it, consequences. He sends for Uriah, the husband, the warrior. Bring him home from the front lines. David says, let him lie with his wife. Let the timeline be blurred. Uriah the Hittite, a foreigner by blood, but more loyal to Israel than the king himself. David welcomes him, feeds him, wines him, then urges him, go home. Be with your wife, but Uriah doesn't go. While his brothers fight and bleed on the battlefield, he will not enjoy the comforts of home. He refuses. In wartime, warriors kept themselves consecrated, abstinent, focused. Holy David's plan has failed, and so he moves to something darker. A royal letter carried unknowingly by the man it condemns. Put Uriah at the front where the fighting is fiercest, then pull back. Let him fall! And just like that, a loyal soldier dies. A breath of relief. No scandal, no witnesses, no questions. And what of her? The widow. The tears she sheds are real. She has lost a husband, an anchor, her honor. After her mourning period ends, she is summoned again. David takes her as his wife. She moves into the palace, pregnant but protected. The king covers his sin with a crown, but heaven is not silent. God saw what was done. Enter Nathan the prophet. The voice of God, he does not accuse, not yet. He tells a story. There were 2 men, Nathan says. One rich, one poor. The rich man had flocks and herds. The poor man had only one little lamb, a lamb he raised like a daughter. But when a guest came to the rich man, he did not take from his own flocks. Instead, he stole the poor man's lamb, killed it, served it. David's anger burns. He slams his fist down. David furious. That man deserves to die. He must repay fourfold. Nathan doesn't stop. He speaks the judgment of God. You struck down Uriah with the sword. You took his wife as your own. Now the sword shall never depart from your house. Your child shall die. The child is born but stricken. Days of sorrow follow. David pleads with God, but on the seventh day the child dies. He does not rage. He does not blame. He accepts. The price has been paid. David comforts Bathsheba. She holds him in silent grief. And from the ashes of judgment, something unexpected begins. One sin, one bloodstain, one prophet's voice. But the story is far from over. David had pleaded, fought the silence of God with ashes and prayer. He would not eat. He would not rise, only cry and wait. Servants whisper nearby. No one dares to tell him, but when the child dies, they fear the king's mind will break. But David stands. He bathes, changes his clothes, and enters the house of the Lord. David kneels in the temple alone. Head bowed, not in defiance, not in anger, in worship. Why? When the child was alive, you fasted. Now he is dead, and you rise. David's reply, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept. Who knows whether the Lord will be gracious to me? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me. And Bathsheba is silent. No words, no screams, no curses. Her grief runs too deep for sound. She has lost a husband and now her child. Taken by the lust of a king and the justice of God, David enters, sits beside her. No words are spoken. He simply holds her hand. They share a sorrow that can't be written down. But out of this shared wound, something new will take root. Seasons pass. Bathsheba grows pregnant again. In time she bears another son. This time a son of promise. They name him Solomon, Shalomo from Shalom, peace. And unlike before, this time God speaks. The prophet Nathan returns, now gentle, smiling. The same prophet who pronounced judgment now bears a new message. The Lord loved him and called him Jedediah, beloved of the Lord. Bathsheba holds the baby, her face still solemn, but a glimmer of hope in her eyes. From ashes, peace. From judgment, mercy. But the price was paid in blood. Sin leaves a scar, even forgiven sin, even royal sin. But in the silent spaces where grief once lived, grace takes root. Solomon would one day wear the crown. But his mother's crown was carved from sorrow. Years passed. The grief faded, but the memory never left. Bathsheba bore more children. Her body healed. Her voice returned. But she used it sparingly. She never forgot the cost of the crown, and she would make sure her son earned it without losing his soul. Nathan the prophet visits Bathsheba in private. Once Nathan condemned David for what he did to her. Now they were allies, protectors of a quiet promise. A pact whispered in the shadows of a dying empire. King David was no longer the warrior of old. His grip on the throne was slipping. And into that silence stepped Adonijah, another son, another contender. While David clung to life, Adonijah crowned himself king. No permission, no blessing, just ambition and timing. But some promises are not forgotten. Nathan came to Bathsheba, not the generals, not the priests. She was the fulcrum of fate. It had been years since she last pleaded for anything. But today she came not as a victim, not as a wife. She came as a mother. Bathsheba said, "My Lord, did you not swear by the Lord your God that Solomon your servant shall reign after you? Why then is Adonijah king?" She spoke no accusation, only truth. And truth, even whispered, can stir a king from his grave. Two voices, one truth. David hears. And for one last time, the Lion of Judah rises. Call Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet. Take Solomon, put him on my mule. Anoint him king. Before Adonijah's crown could settle on his head, it was stripped away. Solomon was king. Ambition undone by a mother's quiet resolve. She did not raise a sword. She did not shout. She simply reminded a king of his vow. Behind every crown is a quiet architect. And Bathsheba was the queen mother. The boy Bathsheba, once cradled in silence, now wears the crown, Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. And standing beside him, not a warrior, not a priest, but a woman, Bathsheba, the queen mother. In ancient Israel, the king's wife held no official title, but the king's mother was the Gabira, the great lady. She did not rule, but her words could shape the throne. And then came Adonijah, humbled but not harmless. He came not to Solomon but to Bathsheba. Adonijah said, "I have one small request. Give me Abishag the Shunammite to be my wife." Abishag, the young woman who once lay beside David to keep him warm, not his wife, but in the eyes of men, a symbol of royal power. To take her was to whisper of kingship. She agrees, or so it seems, and she carries the message not to dissuade Solomon, but to deliver it. Ask for the kingdom as well. He is my elder brother. To Solomon this was not romance. It was a resurrection of rebellion, and this time there would be no second chances. And so Adonijah died, but one question hung in the silence. Did she know? Did she send him to his death with the grace of a grieving mother or the precision of a queen who had learned the rules of power? She no longer needed to speak loudly. Her silence carried weight. The girl on the rooftop was gone. In her place stood the most powerful woman in Israel, Bathsheba, mother of a king, keeper of the crown. Not just the woman behind David's fall, but the woman behind Solomon's rise. From scandal to sovereignty, from sorrow to strength, the untold story of Bathsheba. In the end, history does not always remember the silent ones, but power does. History remembers her name, but not always her voice. Bathsheba, a woman whose life began in scandal but ended in sovereignty. She was once the object of a king's desire, then the widow of a murdered man, then the mother of Israel's wisest king. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife, Matthew 1:6. She is not named, only remembered as the wife of Uriah, a scar written into the lineage of the Messiah. Of all the women God could have chosen, Bathsheba's legacy becomes part of the line that leads to Jesus, the child born of grief who becomes the ancestor of grace. Bathsheba's story is not just about sin, but about redemption. Not just about being used, but being chosen. Not just pain, but purpose. God didn't erase the rooftop. He didn't rewrite the tragedy. He redeemed it. In the silence of Scripture, between the wars and the wisdom, stands a woman not loud, not crowned but remembered. Because even in brokenness, God writes his most powerful stories. Bathsheba, wife, mother, queen, ancestor of the Messiah, a legacy of pain turned into purpose. Bathsheba's story is messy, complex, and powerful. It doesn't fit neatly into the boxes we often create for biblical characters. She was a woman caught between kings, prophets, and providence. Some remember her as a victim, others a survivor, and some wonder if she was always in control. But the Bible doesn't give us her inner monologue. It gives us her journey from scandal to royalty, from shame to significance. Bathsheba reminds us that even in betrayal, even in brokenness, God's redemptive hand is at work. That your lowest point may be the very soil where your legacy takes root. So the question is not just who Bathsheba was, but what her story says about you. What if your worst moment is the soil for your greatest legacy? Victim, survivor, or strategist, who was Bathsheba really?